Bubble.io is well known for empowering people to create fully customizable and interactive web apps. Providing an upvote feature for user-generated content is a significant factor for encouraging engagement and building an active user base. This video will guide you on how to create and integrate an upvote feature for user-generated content in Bubble.io to stimulate user involvement and increase app popularity. And we're going to start with this repeating group, and it's just showing a post showing my content of data type search for posts. And if we have a look in data, you can see I've just got some dummy content created in posts. And if we preview the app, it just lists through using the repeating group my 3 posts. So if I want to upvote the content, how would I go about that? Well, I'm going to show you a number of different methods to do so. I'm going to start by adding in a group into the row here, and put this, give this a little bit of padding, and add in an icon. We'll make this column, make this an upvote. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so let's do it one method. Let's go about this by just creating a counter. When this group is clicked, I'm going to start a workflow and say make changes to thing, and the thing is going to be my post because that's where I'm going to keep a record of how many upvotes it's received, and I'm going to create a new field and call this votes and make it numerical. And then all I'm going to do is say current, either of these, it doesn't really matter. We'll go with this post votes add 1. Let's preview that. In fact, I've got no way of giving any visual feedback on it, so I'm going to add in some text here. Make this the post so that I can carry the data down my element tree. If you look there, so we've got repeating group, we've got the cell. So this is now post votes. Get rid of the width. Let's center it. Right, preview that. So when you can see that it's now become a button because the browser is responding with the hand icon ready to click, and if I click it, I can upvote. And you can see that in data it's now got 4 upvotes. So this is very limiting because what if I want to restrict the user to only upvote once? Well, then I need to approach it in a slightly different way. So let's clear this down to 0. In fact, let's just empty it. So I've got to come up with a way of tracking whether a user has voted on the post or not. Now, one way of doing that would be to save the post to the user, and basically the user has a field which lists out all the posts they've voted on. I just need to be able to construct some sort of conditional statement that would allow me to say this user has voted for this post and to not allow them to vote anymore. The way I'm going to go about it is to create a field on the post called voted by user, and to say that's of type user, and then that this is a list. And then I change my workflow. Instead of using that votes, in fact I'll delete that so we don't get confused. The votes number field is now gone. I'll say when this group is clicked, I'm going to voted by user add current user. And I need to do one other change, which is rather than looking at the numerical count, which I've deleted, I'm going to say voted by user count. So currently 0, and if I click it, it's not going to allow me to add more than 1. Now that is to do with how Bubble handles lists. It's not allowing me to add the person more than once. And we can check that out by going back into data. And if I... So part of what's going on here is the fact that even though I'm running the app as a non-logged in user, and Bubble is using a cookie to track the session in order to do limited behaviors associated with current user. But it's not able to actually track that user has taken that action. So I'm now running it as a logged in user. And let's try this one. Yeah. Okay, and then if I go into here, into posts, I can see that voted by user, it's now creating a list of the user. And it's not going to allow me to add duplicates, like it's only going to allow unique entries in there, which works fairly well for upvoting. I'm going to show you one last thing on this, which is what if we want the user to be able to remove the vote that they've cast. So we add in a conditional statement here, and we say only when current sales post voted by user doesn't contain current user. So that's going to restrict them to only running it once anyway. And then I'm going to copy and paste this. In fact, the condition, if we're really optimizing it, should go on the workflow square rather than the first instance. So let's just go back to 1. I like to color code, so I'll make this green because it's doing a positive action, and I'm going to copy and paste that. And this is going to be my negative action. So when current post voted by user does contain current user, I want to remove. It goes down to 0, goes back up to 1, goes down to 0, because when the current user already exists in that field, it runs this workflow and it removes current user from the field, and we can check that in data by refreshing it, and we can see that voted by user is now empty. Now there may come a point when you want to optimize this a little bit, and here's just a starter for optimizing, which is that let's say you have 1,000 users in your app. Do you really want to be counting hundreds of upvotes every time the page loads? So the way around that would be to add in another step here. In fact, we could use a custom event, because we're going to do the same thing twice. So this will be count votes and of type post. So when the user adds themselves as a voter, we will trigger a custom event. Results of step 1, and we'll add in, make changes to a thing, this post, and we'll add back in the numerical votes. This is to stop us from having to run the count for every single cell in our table every time the page loads. So we'll say posts, no it's not, it is going to be post voted by user count. And we can add the same here. Now if I go back, I'm going to display the number based on the numerical field, not the count field. And you can see it works exactly the same way, but it's more optimized for if you were to have hundreds of users in that voting field. You're displaying a static number rather than having to run the count every time. One last thing, you might notice that the field is empty and it's not actually showing a 0. There'll be 2 ways you could counter this. One would be in text here to say when current posts votes is 0, text is 0. Okay, let's check that. Okay, what have I done wrong there? Votes is a number field. Okay, so that's one way of approaching it, but only if you've done this first, and then actually if you've done this, there's no need to have this conditional statement. So basically, all you needed to do was in post say votes number is 0. And that's simply because Bubble treats an empty field, at least with a number sort of like 0, at least when it comes to doing calculations like the +1 I demoed at the start, but it won't display it as 0 as you just saw if the field is completely empty. By putting a default into your data types and into your field here, you're just saying that every time a post is created it is actually 0 rather than it just being empty.